Usually I would begin by celebrating that there's no more international breaks until March. However, it wasn't the worst international break for us Scots, was it? Because we're off to the World Cup. Plus, my love for Scott McTominay only got stronger and deeper over the last couple of weeks. But now I need to bring my attention back to the Premier League. Welcome to my preview and prediction show, and this is where I like to see you guys get involved. Just like Ian did a couple of weeks ago, and he is the winner of the prediction competition here on Tartan. He correctly predicted Spurs Man United would finish 2-2. He had West Ham down for a win. He correctly predicted Chelsea would beat Wolves 3-0. He had Aston Villa and Brentford both down for wins. He also correctly predicted it would finish 0-0 at Selhurst Park between Palace and Brighton. And he also had wins for Nottingham Forest and Manchester City. So really strong set of predictions there from Ian. So congratulations. This is your prize, which is a shout out from a random Scotsman who chats nonsense on YouTube. But a random Scotsman that will be following his country at the World Cup next summer. Yes, there you go, Ian. Hope you like your prize. You guys can get involved in the comments below by giving me your predictions for this set of fixtures. Right then, hopefully if you're new to the channel, you've already subscribed. If not, please do so now, and also drop a like on the video as well by clicking thumbs up button. It helps out the channel. If we could get 7,000 subscribers before Christmas, it's a bit ambitious. I like ambition, especially if it's to see your country play the World Cup. Right, no more World Cup stuff. Well, actually, I can't promise. I'll try not to. Right, we get underway on Saturday at lunchtime as Burnley host Chelsea. Chelsea are the only side currently in the top 8 of the Premier League that Burnley are yet to face this season. So 11 games and 7 of them have come from teams currently in the top 8. So a difficult set of fixtures for Burnley to open the season with, but they're coming up against the Chelsea side who have won 4 and drawn 1 away from home. Burnley had a bit of a blow when they got beat by us just before the international break, because when you looked at their fixtures, and like I said, they've had some difficult ones, but the other ones, they were winning those games. They beat Sunderland, and at the time, it was only the second game of the season, so, you know, it was still 2 newly promoted teams. We didn't know how good Sunderland were going to be at that point. They beat Sunderland, they beat Wolves, they beat Leeds, so they were beating the teams around about them. They drew in Nottingham Forest, then they come up against West Ham, and that's the first sort of winnable fixture that they've lost this season. But this one feels like one of those unwinnable fixtures, but it's not, because Chelsea can be inconsistent at times, but I think they might just have a little bit too much for Burnley on Saturday. I'm going to say Burnley 1, Chelsea 2. Moving on to the Saturday 3 p.m. games then, and Bournemouth host my team, West Ham. Bournemouth have won 4 and drawn 1 at home in the Premier League so far this season, and Iriola is unbeaten against Nuno head-to-head from the managers in the dugouts. Iriola has won 2 and drawn 2 against Nuno. We are not very good away from home. I think we've won 1, drawn 1 and lost 3 away from home so far this season. It's not ideal. Plus, we are the only team in the Premier League that has lost all 3 games in 2025 that comes immediately after an international break. So there's not really many statistics which suggest that we will get something from this match. We've won our last 2 games now against Burnley and against Newcastle United. 2 good results, 2 important results for us. And I think the international break came at the wrong time and the right time for some clubs. And that's always the case. You know, we'll get onto it later on. There's one in particular, I think, they probably didn't want the international break. I think Bournemouth might have done. I think their game against Villa just prior, they looked tired already, which is a bit strange after 11 Premier League games, but they just looked fatigued in that second half at Villa Park. So arguably it came at the right time, although there's a question mark over Semenyo. He was withdrawn from the Ghana squad due to personal reasons, some suggesting it's an injury, so we'll wait and see if he's fit or not. But even if he's not, they've still got a lot of good players, Bournemouth. I struggle to see us getting anything from this one. I'm going to say Bournemouth 2, West Ham 1, sadly. And as much as I want to win my own prediction competition, right, I'm happy to get a couple wrong. That's obviously the one I hope I'm getting wrong. Brighton are hosting Brentford, 1 loss in 7. for Brighton, unbeaten in 9 at home, going back to last season as well, coming up against the Brentford side, who have won 1 and lost 4 away from home this season. Much better at the G-Tech Community Stadium than they are away. However, both these clubs are on the same amount of points in the league. If you offered Brentford fans that after 11 games you'd have the same amount of points as Brighton this season, I think they would have took it. Whereas if you offered Brighton fans after 11 games you'll be on the same amount of points as Brentford, I think they would have said no thank you. But this is how tight the league is. Brighton are 11th, I think. I'm doing this bit from memory here. Brighton are 11th in the Premier League right now, yet they're only 3 points away from 4th. The league is starting to get quite congested in certain areas. Bournemouth were second a few weeks ago. They're now not even in the European spots at the minute. So a couple of decent results can take you from bottom half of the table up into the top 4 at present. I think there's going to be goals. Up Brighton. I still find them hard to trust. Some of their stats look good. I mean, it sounds good, doesn't it? Unbeaten in 9 at home, 1 loss in 7, but only 3 wins and 3. I mean, the other 3 being draws, obviously. So why are you 11? You feel like a team with those statistics would be a little bit higher. I'm going to say Brighton 2, Brentford 2, and this is another prediction. I wouldn't mind getting wrong. I know Brentford are quite far away of the relegation zone, but I don't know. I'm just hoping we can just drag them back into it a little bit. Fulham host Sunderland. A big game for Fulham at Craven Cottage. Just 1 win in their last 6, and the other 5 games being defeats as well. So it's not a great time for Fulham or Marco Silva. Some talk during the international break that they were going to offer him a new contract, and this is something I think would be beneficial. This isn't the same as Wolves offering Pereira a new contract. That was a stupid thing to do, unless, of course, they were able to insert a clause which reduced the compensation he would get if he was sacked. But with Marco Silva, there's loads of evidence as to why they should back him and give him a long-term deal at that football club. And I think it might just help things because it just doesn't feel right at Fulham at the minute. And I don't think his contract situation, which is expiring in the summer essentially, I don't think that's helping matters here. But at Craven Cottage, though, they have won 3 and drawn 1 and lost 1 so far this season. So overall form's not great, but home form isn't too shabby whatsoever. Coming up against the Sunderland side, though, who are unbeaten in 4. Obviously, their last game was against Arsenal, which they drew 2-2. The first team to put 2 goals past Arsenal this season. So it's not an easy fixture for Fulham going into this one. I don't think it's an easy fixture for Sunderland either. These games I still see as must not lose for Sunderland. I don't think they're never going to get relegated. The only people that think Sunderland can still get relegated are Sunderland fans, right? It's still them. Even though I keep mentioning it, I'll always get a Sunderland fan going, nah, they're convincing themselves they might get relegated. Sunderland fans, are you watching? You ain't getting relegated. No chance, right? It's just not happening. You're not getting relegated. But it's a case of, well, they've almost got to readjust their ambitions, I think, now. Brighton's ambitions will be European football. Bournemouth's ambitions will be European football. I think they still are those. I think the only club really in the Premier League that's adjusting what they want to achieve this season, it should be Sunderland, and it should be top half. Can we finish in the top 10 of the Premier League, which would be a fantastic achievement for them. I'm going to go Fulham 1, Sunderland 1. Again, I hope I'm wrong, because I would prefer Sunderland to win this one. I'm not going to lie. Fulham are just 1 point above the bottom 3 right now. They are relegation battle candidates. Liverpool host Nottingham Forest. Liverpool 1 win and 5 losses in their last 6. However, they've won 4 of 5 at Anfield in the league. Coming up against the Nottingham Forest side managed by Sean Dyche. I went and had a little look because I often think I don't know how to word this without being too offensive. I don't want to call him a firefighter, but you know what I mean, right? Managers like Dyche, Moyes, Allardyce, Tony Pulis, if we want to go back that far. Those types of managers, I think, can be a little bit white flaggish when it comes to playing the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, Man United. When they play the big 6, I think they play the badge rather than the team. And it's almost like it doesn't really matter which version of that club they come up against. They're going to play with fear, really. So I went and had a look to see how Dyche has got on against Liverpool in general. And he's lost 12 of 17 games against Liverpool. He's got a worse record against some of those that I mentioned, like Man United and Arsenal. For Nottingham Forest, though, they've improved under Dyche. I do think they've improved a little bit under Dyche. Started to score goals now, 5 goals in the last 3, which is more than the previous 8 games prior to that. But I don't know. Even though Liverpool have been unconvincing, I think they'll be all right. I'm going to say Liverpool 2, Nottingham Forest 1. Wolves host Crystal Palace, a new era at the Molineux. Rob Edwards takes charge of his first game. 2 points from 11 from Wolves so far this season. Coming up against the Crystal Palace side, who'd won 3 and drawn 1 just before the international break. And they are one of the teams I think would not have wanted international break. Keeping clean sheets in 3 of those 4 as well. They had a really good defence last season, and it's at the start of this season, and a bit in the middle between the international breaks, they weren't quite purring, they weren't quite keeping clean sheets, the form wasn't quite there either. But it feels like we've seen Glasnow's Palace in between the 2 international breaks now. I think it's a very difficult fixture for Rob Edwards to kick off his Wolves tenure with. I think he would have been wanting a more winnable fixture than this one. I find it hard not to go for a Palace win here, because as much as they changed the manager, he's still going to have a lot of the issues that Pereira inherited, which is, are the players good enough? Do the players want to be there? Are the players up for the fight? I think some of them are, but I'm not convinced all of them are. So can Edwards get them on side? A lot of the players that he's going to be utilising on Saturday will possibly only be returning to training today, Thursday. So he's not going to have much time to work with quite a few of them either due to that international break. So I think it's a difficult situation for Edwards to go into. But I think the home fans, will be behind him. I think the atmosphere will be good on Saturday, because it's last chance saloon. It feels wild saying it about, it's match day 12, and it feels wild suggesting that it's sort of last chance. But it is. They don't win their next couple. I think they're gone anyway. But they're really going to have to hit a decent bit of form immediately, because if you don't win the next couple, you can't have 2 points, or even give them a couple of draws. You can't have 4 points after 13 games. You just can't. They've got to get 3 wins to overtake the likes of Burnley. And that's 3 wins more than Burnley. It's not impossible. Mathematically, it's very possible. There's still a long way to go, but it feels unlikely. He needs to put points on board quickly. I just can't see it starting this week. I'm going to say Wolves 0, Crystal Palace 2. Newcastle hosts Manchester City, another team not doing well this season. Newcastle closer to the bottom 3 than the top 3, not where they would have expected to have been. However, they've won the last 5 at St James's Park in all competitions. Manchester City's record away in the Premier League is a little bit sketchy. 1-2, drawn 1, lost 2. But here's an interesting fact. Eddie Howe is winless in 18 Premier League games against Manchester City, and I believe that is a record for a manager to go a certain amount of games against the same opposition and not win a game. I don't believe there's another manager in the history of the Premier League that's played 18 times against a certain club and not won. Obviously, Moyes has got a terrible record away to certain clubs, but at home, whether it be Goodison, London Stadium, even the Stadium of Light, maybe, I don't know, Hill Dickinson, where he's won games against the likes of Man U and Arsenal, but away from home, probably not. But how 18 without a win against Manchester City, which I think is a record. Man City, it's hard to go against them at the minute when you got Erling Haaland, the form he's in. He's carried it into the international break as well. 2 goals against Italy and that second goal as well was just absolutely ridiculous. It looks easy because it's Erling Haaland. It looks easy. You think, oh yeah, it's just what he does. But actually, it's a very difficult skill. That type of finish was very, very impressive. Newcastle, things just don't feel right. It just doesn't feel right at the minute. I think there's a lot of question marks. I think there's a lot of pressure getting put on Newcastle, and I think Newcastle will become a target for some journalists because because of the takeover and because of the owners of Newcastle, I think there will be some journalists who do not like Newcastle because of their owners. And I think they'll be wanting Newcastle to struggle. And when they do, I think they might find themselves with a target on their back very, very quickly. Eddie Howe is one of the most likeable people in football, which I think helps soften the face of Newcastle, if you like. But I wouldn't be surprised to see if Newcastle lose this game. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of journalists have already got the articles written up in the, as I always say, the knife sharpened, the pens are been dipped in ink, they're ready to rock and roll. I struggle to see Newcastle winning though, despite their good home form. I'm going to say Newcastle 1, Manchester City 3. Then on to Sunday's games. Leeds United take on Aston Villa at Ellen Road. Just one win and 4 losses in their last 5 for Leeds United. However, just one defeat in 5 at Ellen Road. Statistics. This is a wonderful thing, or the crap thing about statistics. You can, depending on how you want to look at it, you can make it something look good, you can make something look bad. That's why I always try and be balanced and do both things. Coming up against an Aston Villa side who are inconsistent away from home, but they have won 8 in their last 10 in all competitions. I think Villa have been putting a little bit of form together, somewhat under the radar a little bit. And I think it's because their big players aren't firing. Ollie Watkins is not scoring goals. Morgan Rogers has been a little bit hit and miss. He's getting back into form now, but certainly for the first few weeks of the season, he wasn't great. And Villa fans were getting frustrated with him. I remember that game, was it a European game maybe, where a lot of his passes were misplaced, and eventually it was and I get it. I completely get it, because if you watch a player play poorly for 60, 70 minutes, eventually you are going to start to get frustrated with him. But it does feel like his form's picking up a little bit. They just have no alternative to Ollie Watkins. But even though he's not been scoring, I do think he's put in some good performances for Villa of late. Coming up against the Leeds side, though, and this is where you look at their run of fixtures, it's very, very difficult. I think when I've seen these unofficial statements coming out about how the board are backing Fark and so on, I just don't know. I feel it feels like the wrong decision for me, really. I think this is a bad thing. My prediction will be that in a few weeks' time, Leeds United will be hiring a new manager. There's more pressure, weirdly, I think there's more pressure on the Leeds board than Daniel Farke at this point, because I think there's a lot of expectancy that Farke's not up to it and he's going to fail. And I think the frustration will be aimed at the board, which is, well, if we could see this coming, why didn't you see this coming? So I think the board really need Farke to put points on the board and get a couple of unexpected wins. I just can't see it happening. I just don't trust the front part of Leeds United's team. I'm going to say Leeds United 0, Aston Villa 2. Then we've got the North London derby on Sunday afternoon. Not as tasty as it used to be, is it? Let's be honest. It's not as fun. None of the derbies are anymore. Football's changed, isn't it? The days of crunchy tackles, gone. The days of scraps in the middle of the pitch, gone. Big characters like Patrick Vieira, gone. Nutters, gone. Everything that you need for a tasty game of football doesn't really exist in football anymore, does it? But I think sometimes the affiliation to the club as well. I think it's just how many players really love the club they're at. It's quite a low percentage, whereas I think maybe back in the days you'd buy into the club and the fan base a little bit more than perhaps you do now. But anyway, it just doesn't. It's not as. I don't look forward to them as much anymore. I will be concede to. I'm looking forward to Newcastle Sunderland. I'm looking forward to that. But a lot of that's down to the fan bases and also maybe the absence of a league game. I know they played each other in the league, but I think maybe just the last few years it's been a little while since they played each other in the league. I think so. I'm looking forward to that one. But I don't know, it just didn't carry the same punch anymore, do you know what I mean? But Arsenal coming up against Spurs, obviously Gabriel picked up an injury during the international break, so it's not good news, but they'll be fine. Whether they bring in Mosquera, they've got good alternatives at centre-back, Arsenal. They'll be okay without him for a few weeks. Spurs, as much as I give them stick for being boring and I stand by it, league-wise are looking all right. Their home form is a problem, though. That's the bit they're struggling with. Their away form, though, 1 loss in 8 away games in all competitions. So they're better on the road than they are at their own gaff, Tottenham, which might make this game a little bit more interesting. And even though they drew against Sunderland, I just find it impossible to go against Arsenal at present. That, I think, was, say, a bump in the road. That's harsh. That's almost like discrediting what Sunderland achieved on that night. Sunderland were bloody good that night, and I think it was one of my favourite games of football this season till the international break. But I'm going to say Arsenal 2, Spurs 0. Ironically, boring Arsenal 2, boring Spurs 0. Manchester United take on Everton on Monday Night Football. 2 draws and 3 wins in the last 5 for Man United. Everton have swung it around a little bit statistically, because a few weeks ago they were 1 win in 8, and now they're 2 wins, 2 draws and 2 losses in 6. So their form's picking up a little bit. Man United have won the last 4 at Old Trafford, whereas Everton have not won in the last 4 away games. A difficult game to call, this one, I think. So I'm going to go down the middle. I'm going to go 1-1 on it. A difficult game to call, but I think it's one of them where I spoke earlier about adjusting ambitions. I think Man United's ambitions would have been European football, so perhaps they won't have to readjust. But I never really had them down as finishing in the top 8 of the Premier League. Maybe I did. I might have had them. I don't know. I think I had them 9th or something in my little pre-season prediction thing. So they are sort of on course for that, but they are picking up some decent enough results, Man U. I just don't trust them there. I'm still not convinced that they've improved that much. I think they've just got better players, and that's why they've improved. Coming up against an Everton team, I've seen West Ham plenty of times under Moyes go to the likes of Old Trafford, and the lack of ambition to win the game can be frustrating at times. And that's why I'm going to go for a draw, because I think if Everton took the lead, I think they'd try and hang on to it, a bit like they did against Sunderland a few weeks ago. And if Man U take the lead, I'm not sure Everton, they might get back into it and equalise. I'm not sure they'll go on and win the game though. So I'm going to say Man United 1, Everton 1. Thank you very much for joining me though. Please do get your predictions in below. I've put out the fixtures in the pinned comments and in the descriptions. There's 2 lists. Just pick one of them, copy, paste, submit your predictions before the 12:30 game on Saturday. And do not edit your comments, please. If you make a mistake, delete your comment and post a different one. Do not edit it, because it's impossible for me to see when you've edited it. So you could have done it genuine. You could have put it up today. You edit it on Friday, tomorrow. It's all legit and above board, but I don't know that, so I have to discount any edited comments. No random shout-outs for you if you edit your comment. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll catch you in a bit.